Here's a complete breakdown of everything that's happened in the Sean Combs trial from start to finish. If you missed any part of the case, this short but thorough video has you covered. 34 witnesses testified against Sean Diddy Combs in the Bombshell federal trial. From celebrity names like Kid Cudi to shocking stories from behind the scenes, this trial has revealed more than anyone expected. And guess what? The prosecution has officially rested, and what happened next caught everybody off guard. Let's break it all down. At the center of the case were Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former girlfriend, and another woman referred to only as Jane. They testified for a combined 10 days, detailing allegations of control, abuse, trafficking, and violence inside a hidden empire. Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura, and her friend Carrie Morgan also testified, speaking on payments, threats, and attempts to isolate Cassie from her family. Then came the stunners. Kid Cudi told the court about a 2011 break-in by Diddy and said shortly after that, his car was firebombed. Don Richard from Danity Kane also testified about disturbing behind-the-scenes behavior she witnessed. Two male performers, Daniel Phillip and Sheree Hayes, shared details about private parties and alleged violent episodes. Multiple former assistants, including Capricorn Clark, George Kaplan, David James, and Brendan Paul, painted a dark picture. Paul, who was granted immunity, admitted to setting up parties and sourcing drugs. Others described having to clean up violent messes, silence victims, and follow Combs' instructions without question. Former CFO Derek Ferguson laid out how money moved through Combs' businesses to support what prosecutors are calling a criminal network. Even his former chief of staff, Christina Coram, had her phone introduced into evidence full of text, flights, and photos. The court also heard from Joseph Cerciello, HSY agent who submitted explicit videos and travel logs. Gerard Gannon brought forward evidence of firearms and surveillance tools. Enrique Santos, a forensic expert who retrieved Combs' private messages from seized phones. Christopher Ignacio and Lance Jimenez, LA officers who handled the Kid Cudi car arson investigation. In total, 24 witnesses were publicly named, with 10 more kept anonymous due to the sensitive nature of their testimony. Now, here's where things flipped. On June 24th, 2025, the prosecution officially rested its case after 6 weeks of jaw-dropping testimony. The defense, they made a bold move. They rested their case almost immediately without calling a single witness. Diddy himself declined to testify. He waived his right to speak, likely avoiding a harsh cross-examination. Legal experts say this tactic shows confidence. They're banking on the jury finding reasonable doubt based on their cross-examinations. And right after, the prosecution narrowed their case, dropping a few charges like attempted arson and aiding, abetting, and focusing entirely on racketeering and sex trafficking. Now the court moves to the closing arguments, jury instructions, and finally, deliberations. Here's what unfolded during the prosecution's closing argument on June 26, 2025, in the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. ADA Christy Slavic portrayed Combs as the ringleader of a racketeering conspiracy, using his influence and entourage to perpetrate coercion, violence, sex trafficking, bribery, arson, and obstruction of justice over many years. Combs allegedly wielded power, violence, fear, drugs, and threats to dominate victims at his drug-fueled sex events, labeled freak-offs. Testimony from Cassie Ventura and an anonymous Jane described forced participation through pressure and abuse. Prosecutors emphasized the 2016 hotel assault video of Combs chasing Cassie and repeated, "This is what happened when Cassie said no." The jury was shown graphic video evidence of domestic violence, hotel records, financial logs, and lurid text messages to highlight systematic abuse. Prosecutors underscored other alleged crimes, including drug trafficking and an attempted car bombing involving Kid Cudi. Slavic reminded jurors, the prosecution needs only 2 criminal acts under racketeering to secure a conviction. Combs didn't take no for an answer, exploiting women's lives, silencing them through intimidation and shame. The prosecution concluded with a clear entreaty: it's time to hold him accountable. The prosecution's closing argument tied together testimony, videos, financial, and logistical data to portray Combs as running an intimidation-based criminal enterprise, not just consenting adult activity. They emphasized 2 proven criminal actions would suffice for conviction. Here's a breakdown of the defense's closing argument delivered by lead attorney Mark Agnifilo on June 27, 2025. Agnifilo described the case as a trial of lifestyle about consensual adult activity, not criminal enterprise. He emphasized the government exaggerated the evidence, turning Combs's personal sex life into prosecutable offenses. He sarcastically mocked the seizure of baby oil and lubricants, suggesting enforcers were targeting Combs's sex toys rather than actual wrongdoing. Agnifilo said, "We own the domestic violence," acknowledging Combs's past abusive conduct toward Cassie Ventura, but fiercely argued that none of it amounted to criminal, sex trafficking, racketeering, or coercion. He painted Combs as a self-made, successful Black entrepreneur, supported by glowing testimonies from former employees who likened working with him to attending Harvard Business School. The defense attacked Cassie Ventura and Jane, framing both as willing participants rather than coerced victims. Ventura was portrayed as a shrewd litigant seeking financial gain, highlighted by her $20 million civil settlement and an additional $10 million from a hotel lawsuit. Ventura was described as a gangster who played Combs, with Agnifilo asserting, "This isn't about a crime, it's about money." Agnifilo argued that any drug activity was personal use, not tied to a conspiracy. A broad RICO prosecution, he claimed, was misapplied to threesomes and personal drug use, not organized crime. Agnifilo labeled the trial as a fake trial, alleging the government unfairly pursued Combs's private sex life and the accusations were driven by money, not justice. Agnifilo was animated, loud, energetic, pacing before the jury, and used sarcasm to lampoon the prosecution's narrative, acknowledging domestic violence but sharply distinguishing it from sex trafficking, painting Combs as flawed yet not a criminal mastermind. The defense's closing argument urged jurors to separate consensual sexual behavior from criminal acts, view domestic violence as concrete but not part of the charges, question the credibility and motives of key accusers, reject the notion of a racketeering enterprise behind Combs's actions, see the government's case as overheated and opportunistic rather than grounded in provable conspiracy. After this 4-hour defense summation, prosecutors are set to deliver a brief rebuttal before the case heads to jury deliberations. We'll be dropping that information in a short form video soon, so stay tuned. What do you think about all of this? Does Diddy have a real shot at beating these allegations, or is the evidence just too strong? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.